The following is a presentation of Geekster Media.
Welcome to the Resurgence podcast. Now, get ready to take that journey into the neon glow of nostalgia. Here are your hosts, Ken and Chad.
Hey, welcome back everybody to episode 6 of the Retro Resurgence podcast. Hope you're all doing well out there. As always, I'm here with my co-host here, Chad. Chad, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great tonight, ready to record episode 6 and get to talking.
Yeah, we had a good episode last couple weeks ago with our top 5 cereals. That was a fun one to do. It looks like I think we got one piece of feedback from Instagram, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And there's 3 things in life you can be sure of. It's death, taxes, and Gyrospace. Our buddy loves to listen, and we appreciate it. But he just mentioned on the Serial podcast, episode 5, he said, I love this episode. Who doesn't love the retro serials? I know Ken does.
Oh, yeah.
His favorite characters, Count Chocula. Great job, guys. Gyrospace, we appreciate the listen.
Yeah, thank you very much. He's almost pretty sure we can get at least some piece of feedback out of him for each episode. So, yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah, I hope he's a wrestling fan, because that's what we're going to be talking about later in the episode. Right, Ken?
Yeah, we're going to talk some 80s and 90s WWF Pay-Per-Views. So can't wait to get into that. But for our icebreaker, as this episode drops, we'll be one day removed from Thanksgiving. And I thought at least we'd be, what was that?
I said we should mention everyone the happy Black Friday. We hope their turkey, they're not too stuffed. And if they are, it's a perfect way to listen to us, is with a full stomach and relax on the couch, right?
Exactly. So I thought for this icebreaker for this episode, I feel we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. One of the few Thanksgiving movies out there, was released in 1987. It's one of my favorites. Do you watch it at any other time of year besides Thanksgiving?
Not a chance, man.
No, me neither.
Said, there's not many, you can count the number of Halloween movies and Christmas movies, but Thanksgiving really gets the shaft a lot of times, because obviously, we're in mid-November, and of course, many of us, not me, I don't know about you, Ken, but some of us have already put up our trees and done our Christmas shopping. But me, I'm a guy, and my family, we're a guy that likes to give Thanksgiving its proper due. How about you?
Yeah, me too. I always usually watch it the week of Thanksgiving, or maybe like the weekend after Thanksgiving. I always have to squeeze it in. So yeah, one of my favorites. For anybody that doesn't know the movie, I'll just go over a quick little plot here. A Chicago advertising man, Steve Martin, must struggle to travel home from New York for Thanksgiving with a lovable oaf of a shower curtain ring salesman as his only companion, John Candy.
Del Griffith.
Yep, Del Griffith. What I thought we'd do is just go over maybe our top 3 favorite moments of the movie.
Absolutely.
I'll go ahead with my first favorite moment is when their plane gets diverted to Chicago to Wichita, Kansas, and Neil Page and Del Griffith have to end up spending the night in a hotel room together. I think that's a pretty funny scene in the movie.
You find out all of Del's annoyances, and just drive Neil to the edge.
Yeah, they have that little argument there, but then Neil ends up coming back, and they go on from there. So
that's a really good scene, because you can tell Steve Martin's character just lays into John Candy's character, and you can tell after about 2 or 3 minutes of just brutal honesty, you can tell he feels bad, and of course that sets the scene for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I like the part there when they get into the room and they scan, they show, from somebody's perspective. I think it's Steve Martin's. He scans the room and then they just see the one bed, and then he looks back over and Del Griffith is there, and he kind of like just gets this like uncomfortable smile on his face. I think that was always pretty funny.
Yep.
All right. So what about you? What do you got?
I'm going to start off with it's Steve Martin's characters waiting in line at the car rental place, the Marathon car rental, and he just unleashes a verbal tirade. I didn't count many F-bombs. It had to be over a dozen.
That's my second pick for favorite scene in the movie. So yeah, we'll just talk about that one. So I did go on IMDb, and I'm on there right now, and I counted. They have some quotes from the movie, and that one is in there. So earlier today at work, I went on there and I counted how many, and there's 19.
I want a fucking car right fucking now.
Okay. I know I didn't count them, but I listened to the scene again on YouTube, and there's no less than a dozen. But you can start by wiping that effing dumb a smile off your rosy effing cheeks. Give me an effing car, a Datsun, a Toyota, a Mustang, a Buick, anything, a four wheels and a seat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me paraphrasing. Of course, there's it goes on, and then that lady who's at the counter. I mean, she was kind of like in a lot of movies in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Edie McClure, I think her name is.
Yeah, but Edie McClure, yeah.
She just, when she tells him ask him if he has his rental agreement, of course, earlier in the movie, and she says, well, you're effed.
Yeah. She was in Back to School, the Rodney Dangerfield movie, as his personal secretary taking notes in one of the classes, and then she was also the school receptionist or secretary in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I'd say Ferris Bueller is where I remember, but yeah, we talked about Back to School a few episodes back. So.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite scenes is sort of the end of the movie, is when Steve Martin and John Candy are driving the car, and I guess Steve Martin drifts off, falls asleep, and John Candy is driving in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
A nearby car who's a man and a woman are trying to get their attention, saying they're going the wrong way, and at least about 90 seconds of John Candy saying, oh, don't worry about it. They're just, it's nothing. And it lasts on, and they narrowly get through two semis. Sparks are flying, and it's just.
So then, my third favorite part in the movie is right after that. The car catches fire, and then everything, Steve Martin's wallet is in the glove box, and everything burns up, and they go to the hotel room, and then after that night, they get in the car and they're driving it down the road all burnt up, and they get pulled over.
Yeah, that leads in my last one I was going to mention, is when they get pulled over, and John Candy, just as John Candy can be, just so funny. The radio still works. What? Go figure, right?
Yeah. Yeah, when he's talking to the police officer.
But I mean, if you talk about Thanksgiving movies, I see it on everybody's list, and it's there for a reason. I do not watch it any other time. It's like a late November watch, and I watched it sort of, I don't know, it wasn't about 10 or 15 years ago. It wasn't something I grew up watching, but man, it's just a great movie with two chemistry, Steve Martin and John Candy, I wanted to mention too, we are fans, of the Deadpool movie. Do you know about the hidden Easter eggs that Ryan Reynolds puts into his movies?
No, I can't say that I do.
So Ryan Reynolds, a fellow Canadian like John Candy was a huge fan of John Candy and all the movies growing up. So he puts an Easter egg that has something to do with John Candy in every movie. But the last Deadpool movie, I don't know if you remember, but when Deadpool and Wolverine are walking in the void.
Okay.
They walk by the Chrysler Town and Country that's burnt to a crisp, and it's just they happen to walk by it, and it's clearly it's the car from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles driven
Is
by.
it really?
So a lot of people, consider that Del and Neil are part of the MCU.
Wow. I did not know that. I'm going to have to look for that now. With it being on Disney Plus, I'm going to have to keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's clearly the Chrysler Town and Country that was driven by them, and it's the burnt version,
The burnt version, okay.
But
go ahead.
He puts in an Easter egg for John Candy. I think the other Deadpool movies is I can't remember this exactly, but I think when at the beginning when they first meet, John Candy's reading a book, and I believe that book is in either the first or second Deadpool. Just in it's a subtle salute to John Candy and his acting.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So anybody listening out there who hasn't seen it, I definitely recommend it. Go check it out this holiday.
Yeah. Don't wait, man. This one's a classic. Your family, probably kids of a little older, not young kids, but young teens, early adults, they're gonna love it.
All right. So for the second half of our little icebreaker here, Chad, you being from down south and me being from up north here, do you have any special Thanksgiving dinner sides or foods that is a must on your table on Thanksgiving?
I wouldn't say anything particularly special. It's just stuff that I would say is always I expect to see on the table, no matter preparing it or we're going somewhere to prepare it. Usually in my family, every other year we go to the mountains like North Carolina, Tennessee, to stay in a cabin with my wife's family. And of course we do big spread up there. This year we're staying home, having dinner with my parents, but we've already discussed the breakdown and stuff. So, but for me, my top sides, and this is always the case with me and never change, it's mac and cheese. It's gotta have mac and cheese.
Okay.
Deviled eggs is a favorite of mine. Just standard deviled eggs, nothing fancy. And then I'm a big stuffing guy, and some people call it dressing, some people call it stuffing. I've always referred to it as stuffing, but for me, those three things are my staples on the sides. Of course, the turkey, obviously. Yeah. What about you?
So for me, it's pretty basic, pretty simple. I always like to have the mashed potatoes and gravy, stuffing like you. And then
you call it stuffing or dressing?
I would call it stuffing up here, yeah. And then the other thing is my wife always makes a green bean casserole with the French's onions.
I gotta ask you, in terms of a dessert, if you could pick any dessert, what are you gonna pick?
Dessert? It's gotta be pumpkin pie.
I would always choose pecan pie.
Okay.
I love pecan pie. Now, I'll eat any pie that's served to me, but if I'm choosing, and I think I actually making one this year, so a pecan pie is gonna be my choice.
Yeah. So anybody listening to this the day after Thanksgiving, let us know in the comments or anything like that, what you guys have for Thanksgiving.
Listeners, you were recording this before Thanksgiving, but you can just assume that if you're listening to this anytime after this release is dropped, that me and Ken are both stuffed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And now let's move on to the main topic of the show.
All right, Ken. Well, some great Thanksgiving theme icebreakers, and gotta love the Plane, Trains, and Automobile movie. Go out and watch it if you haven't. So, in kind of a tradition, keeping up with the Thanksgiving tradition, this week I decided to focus on wrestling, and Thanksgiving traditionally has always been a time, especially if you're talking about old school WWF. WWE is win Survivor Series. And I don't follow the product too much these days. I assume Survivor Series either is still planning to happen or has happened. I think it hasn't happened yet. Do you know about current Survivor Series? Is it?
Oh, yeah, I believe it's happening November 30th.
Okay, right at the end of the month.
Yep.
That's always been the time where, again, Thanksgiving, Survivor Series has always kind of gone hand in hand. But we wanted to kind of broaden it a little bit. So this week's topic, and of course, if you listen to this podcast regularly, you know that Ken is, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, and then, of course, I'm a little behind, grew up in the 90s. But we decided, hey, let's take the idea of the pay-per-view and let's go ahead and give our top 5 pay-per-views. But what we're going to do is Ken's going to give his list that will be focused in the 80s. And my list focused in the 90s. When we were discussing this a few weeks ago, I told Ken, and we'll reveal our picks 5-1. So we're not going to have any of the same picks,
right,
but probably we'll have some shared memories, of course. But I told Ken, really pay-per-views when it comes to the WWF, really sort of was the first half of the 80s. There really wasn't many pay-per-views, if at all,
No.
And then when pay-per-views started, they happened once every 3 or 4 months until they started establishing a regular routine. And I think it was not until about the mid 90s is when the WWF started doing a regular monthly pay-per-view. So I was saying, my list, it may have been easier for me to pick, or it may have been harder, I don't know, for me to pick a list because I had a lot more to choose from, whereas Ken, he had a lot less to choose from. But of course, Ken's pay-per-views is what's kind of started the whole golden era of wrestling. So anyway, we're going to give our top 5 picks. I'll go from 5-1. Ken will go from 5-1. He'll be in the 80s. I'll be in the 90s. And we're just going to name them and talk about our memories and why we think they are deserving of the pick. So, Ken, you want to start off with your top, or your number 5 pay-per-view of the 80s?
Yeah. So my number 5, it wasn't that spectacular of a pay-per-view, but to me, it's, if you don't have this one, I don't think you have the rest going forward. So, without mentioning this one, I have WrestleMania 1 as my number 5.
Yeah, the one that kicked it off.
Yep, the one that kicked it all off. So we got March 31st, 1985, Madison Square Garden. Of course, this was the famous main event where you had Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with Jimmy Superfly Snuka in their corner, fighting Rowdy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff with Cowboy Bob Orton in their corner. And of course, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T win the match, but I always thought that was pretty cool because as a kid, the A-Team was on TV and Mr. T was, huge at the time.
Yeah, this was also the MTV Rock and Wrestling days.
Yeah.
You had some crossover MTV, Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
He was in the corner of Wendy Richter.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a couple weeks ago about, we talked about the Vince McMahon doc, and WrestleMania 1 was Vince's idea to take wrestling to a global stage, and boy, did he ever.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, none of this, the rest of everything is just null and void without this.
Yeah, I always heard that he put everything on the line for this pay-per-view, to work.
Yeah, that's what the doc said. He said with the whole company, if it failed, the company would have gone under. So.
Just a couple other notable matches from WrestleMania 1. You had Andre the Giant defeating Big John Studd in the Body Slam Challenge. And then you had the Intercontinental Championship Junkyard Dog defeats Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart, of course, in his corner.
Yep.
So yeah, WrestleMania 1. In my mind, I want to say that I saw it happen live, but then as I think about it, I'm not quite sure if I saw it live or if I just, have seen it on the WWE network or, something like that. I'm not quite exact on that memory.
Well, if you would have saw it live, you would have had to have gone to some sort of movie theater.
Yeah.
Circuit television, how they were showing pay-per-views at the time.
Yeah. All right. So heading into the 90s, what do you got for your number 5?
Yeah. So, because of the list, we're going to sort of jump around from decade to decade. But my number 5 is going to be all the way fast forward 1998.
All right.
It's the Survivor Series. We were just talking about Survivor Series 1998. Some of the highlights of this, and of course, we're in the Attitude Era. We are about, I would say, a year into the Attitude Era. This pay-per-view is very, makes my list for a few reasons. One, Austin and Vince their feud is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Vince is trying to not get the title on Austin. Austin had won it at a previous, earlier that year, which you may hear about that pay-per-view here shortly. But he lost it. Undertaker and Kane were basically Vince's picks to try to get the title off of Austin.
Yeah.
But earlier in the year, too, a couple months prior to Survivor Series, Vince made Austin the special guest referee from a match between Undertaker and Kane, and basically Austin did what Austin does, and he basically flipped the bird to both of them.
Yeah.
And he didn't make either one of them win. So the title was vacant. So they used the Survivor Series format. Traditionally, past Survivor Series, there was a tournament style wrestling where you had groups. They basically made this Survivor Series into a tournament. And at the very end, it was The Rock and Mankind who they're past their mid-card. Well, they were in their mid-card sort of status, but they were both being elevated heavily. And in a ironic twist of fate, McMahon comes to the ring. Rock's got Mankind in a sharpshooter. McMahon calls for the bell.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about wrestling, 12 months prior, the Montreal Screwjob had happened.
Yeah.
In very similar fashion. McMahon. And, the documentary explained it perfectly. Vince uses real life scenarios to his advantage. So uses the real Screwjob event from Montreal with Bret Hart that happened in 97. And he does the same thing in 98, which is genius because it gives people even more of a reason to hate Vince. This is actually, The Rock wins, becomes the heavyweight champ. And this is the start of the alliance known as the Corporation. Do you remember that, Ken?
Oh, yeah, I definitely remember that. Yeah.
So Vince is basically trying his best to keep Austin from winning the title. So he basically teams up with people like The Rock, the Big Boss Man was in the alliance, the Undertaker was in the alliance, and it's just basically a heel faction. All of them trying to screw Austin. But the whole event was reminiscent of the 97 Survivor Series. And while the wrestling may have not been one of the best you would see in pay-per-views, the storyline, just the use of a real life scenario, just put it at number 5 for me. So you have any thoughts of Survivor Series 98?
Pretty much just like you said, the main event there with Rock and Mankind, and then them becoming the Corporation, and then later on, wasn't it called the Corporate Ministry or something like that, with the Undertaker heading it up?
Yeah, it's kind of after the Undertaker gets involved, and it becomes more of a crossover between the demonic Taker, and again, are all trying to just get under Austin and keep the title off of him. But you got to think though, this 98, WCW has sort of started to decline. The ratings have gone down. The WWF's is hot, white hot, and they're just winning the rating war. So this kind of further propelled The Rock and Mankind. They had a series of matches to follow, especially in 1999. They had a empty arena match. I believe that might have been during halftime of the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, I definitely remember that. Yeah.
And of course, The Rock would obviously go to the stratosphere. But so this wasn't the end for Mankind, because he would later on find the heavyweight gold himself. So. But Survivor Series 98 was just a top pay-per-view for me.
Yeah, a good pick. I mean, you can't really go wrong with any Attitude Era stuff back then.
What about number 4 for you of the 80s?
All right, so number 4 for me is SummerSlam 1989. Was in East Rutherford, New Jersey. They say the attendance was 20,000. The main event of this was Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake versus Macho Man Randy Savage. And do you remember the wrestler named Zeus?
Eddie Lister, man.
Yeah.
So I was a kid when this happened. Or something, but I remember being legitimately afraid of Zeus. It was two things: the Z that he had in his head, that was
hair.
Yeah, he shaved the Z, and also his eye.
Yeah.
Was just crazy. And of course, you'll probably talk about how he was an actor turned wrestler.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this pay-per-view.
I mean, I know he was in other things, but after the fact, I remember seeing him in the movie Friday with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. Mm-hmm. But I think earlier, I don't know, I believe the movie, I think they tried to play this off of the movie No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan and him in it. Basically, it was just kind of a generic version of the WWF. It was, nothing too spectacular. Hulk Hogan had a different name in the movie, but other than that, he was basically, Hulk Hogan playing a generic version of himself.
Yeah, this was definitely a ploy for just to get the wrestling fans to the movie theaters, and people who love movies that aren't wrestling fans, to get them to sort of go into the wrestling world. This one sort of helped the other, and obviously No Holds Barred was a WWF produced pay-per-view, so a WWF produced movie. So, yeah, I mean, this was really just a continuation of the movie.
And then I think kind of what led to this was earlier in the year, Hogan and Savage were a tag team, the Mega Powers. And then I think in February of that year, on a Saturday night's main event, they broke up because Savage was, blaming Hogan for, looking at Elizabeth. And I want to say it happened in Milwaukee.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've always thought that was, kind of a cool storyline with, they were only together a couple months and then they ended up, I think it's called The Mega Powers Explode.
I believe that would have been the one of the WrestleManias, which, hey, maybe you'll mention in that soon. But that whole storyline, the great thing about WWF at the time is these storylines were planted, and they took times half a year to a year to fully come circle. And it was not like today's wrestling where you got what they consider a little time to develop a story. I've seen a couple recent storylines that have seemed to be going on for a little longer these days, but this one, man, it was a slow burn.
Yeah.
You started to see a little bit of dissension between Macho and Hogan, and of course it culminated this obviously SummerSlam, but then of course their feud at WrestleMania.
And then just another notable match from this pay-per-view, you had Ultimate Warrior defeating Ravishing Rick Rude to regain his Intercontinental title. And a lot of people say that this was probably one of Warrior's better matches that he had.
Yeah, he didn't have many, but this one, I guess, is one of them.
So, yeah, SummerSlam 89. All right, what you got for number 4 from the 90s?
Number for the 90s, you're going to find these another pick here from 1998. 1998, were you watching in 98? You probably
Oh yeah.
young adult there, just taking it all in. I was a teenager, man.
Yep.
All of this was just, Monday nights were just like appointment television, flipping back between Raw and Nitro.
Oh yeah.
And of course, this was not the era where I had a job. So, getting a pay-per-view, it took a lot of convincing for me. So I didn't see a lot of these, but of course, after the fact or the next night on Raw, you kind of get a little review of the pay-per-view. But for me, number 4 is King of the Ring 1998. Now, King of the Ring was not an 80s pay-per-view. It sort of came into the 90s. There's one big reason why this one makes my list, and I think if anybody is even sort of a remote wrestling fan, you've probably seen the clip, Hell in the Cell. It was the 3rd time ever that the WWF had ever done a Hell in the Cell.
Yeah.
They had it a couple times before in the past, but this one put Hell in the Cell on the map because Mankind and The Undertaker are fighting. They're climbing the top of the cage, and without any regard to human life, The Undertaker throws Mankind off the 25-foot cage. I don't know how it was, but onto the announce table. I mean, it was just, I think it probably even normal news stations would probably pick this up. Just the fact that it's happened and a man just plummeted to what looked like certain injury. And then to come and find out that he still fought on, and then he got back up on this cage, and The Undertaker did a backdrop onto Mankind, and he falls down onto the thumbtacks.
Yeah, man.
Cage. I mean, this one event, I said I can't not include this pay-per-view because this wasn't even the main event. I mean, the main event actually Austin and Kane in the first ever First Blood match. Yeah. Like I said earlier, Austin is the champ. And of course, Vince is trying his best to take the title off of Austin. Kane actually won the match, but Austin won it back the next night on Raw. And then a couple other matches. One other match was the King of the Ring. Obviously, it was sort of a tournament. It was always traditionally a tournament, so that was sort of one part of the pay-per-view. In this edition of King of the Ring, Ken Shamrock defeats The Rock by submission, and he becomes the King of the Ring. But if you say King of the Ring 98, most wrestling fans are going to think Mankind, Hell in the Cell.
Yeah, I remember before she was my wife, my girlfriend at the time, we were watching, I believe at my parents' house, watching the pay-per-view, and just couldn't believe what I was seeing when that happened, when he threw him off the top of the cage and then right through the table. And then just, the call of Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler, I think Jerry Lawler just said, "Oh, he's dead." Unbelievable. I don't, they didn't even think that something like that was going to happen.
Yeah. Did you watch it live, or is this later on?
Oh, no, I watched it live. I couldn't believe that he got back up and went back into the ring. And then, he took, like you said, he took that other bump through the top of the cage down to I thought he broke his back then. I couldn't believe he was still moving.
I know I've heard, we're in the era of a lot of wrestling podcasts around, and a lot of wrestlers have podcasts. And I've heard Mick Foley say that, his body, the way his body was built, the body that God gave him was perfectly suited for wrestling. Because, of course, Mick Foley is not somebody you would picture if you had to draw a wrestler, but his body, he took bumps. I mean, of course, now I don't know how you say that and then expect that you can survive a fall from that distance. But I think he credits his body and the way his body is contoured as to like why he didn't get more seriously hurt than he did. And not just that match, but every bump that he ever took in wrestling. Now I know he's probably not paying for it these days, as he's gotten older.
Yeah.
Retirement, but he, man, just the carnage of that. And then it also, established the Undertaker was certainly established by now, but the fact that Undertaker did it and just stayed in character,
Yeah.
made him even more of a badass,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you look at his face during that whole thing, and he never breaks at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was awesome. That's a good pick.
All right. Well, number 3 for you of the 80s, what you got?
Okay, so number 3, I have Survivor Series 1987. I don't know if this was the very first. I think this might have been the very first Survivor Series.
Yeah, it was.
So you had, so November 26, 1987, Richfield Coliseum, Richfield, Ohio. This pay-per-view only had 4 Survivor matches, but with the Survivor Series, you have the 5-on-5, so they took quite a while. So you had the first match, you had Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Macho Man, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and Jake the Snake Roberts versus King Harley Race, Hercules, Honky Tonk Man, Dangerous Danny Davis, who was a referee converted wrestler, Outlaw Ron Bass. So, and then the winners of this, the survivors, were Macho Man, Ricky the Dragon, and Jake the Snake. Then you had a women's. Now, some of these, I don't even remember who some of these women were. Velvet McIntyre, the Jumping Bomb Angels, Rockin' Robin, and Fabulous Moolah defeating Leilani Kai, Judy Martin, Dawn Marie, Donna Cristianello, and Sherry Martel. She would later go on to be a valet/manager for different wrestlers.
She was the valet of Macho in the last pay-per-view you mentioned in SummerSlam 89. She was in Macho's side. Yeah.
Then you had the third match. Now this match took 37 minutes because it was a 20-man. You had 5 tag teams versus another 5 tag teams. So you had a total of 20 guys in there.
Crowded in that ring.
Yeah. You had the Killer Bees, the Young Stallions, Strike Force, the British Bulldogs, and the Rougeau brothers versus the team of Greg the Hammer Valentine and Dino Bravo, Demolition, the Hart Foundation, the Islanders, and the Bolsheviks. I think that was, I want to say that was Nikolai Volkov, and I can't remember the other wrestler's name that was in that tag team. And then the final match was Andre the Giant, One Man Gang, King Kong Bundy, the Natural Butch Reed, and Ravishing Rick Rude versus Hulk Hogan, Bam Bam Bigelow, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Don Morocco, and Ken Patera. And the sole survivor of that match was Andre the Giant. So pretty much that Survivor Series, you pretty much had probably almost the whole WWF roster in that pay-per-view.
Yeah, it's like gang warfare. And one thing to know, I don't know if you knew this, but Survivor Series was actually Vince's answer to Starrcade. If you early wrestling fans or wrestling fans may not remember, but this was always around the November Thanksgiving time. Starrcade, which was basically the pay-per-view of Vince's chief rival, which was the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA. This is when they used to air Starrcade on in Thanksgiving of the November month. But he actually wanted to create a pay-per-view that would rival Starrcade, and he actually, in true Vince fashion, he went to the cable companies. And now, of course, by this time, WrestleMania is in there. Like, they've had about 3 WrestleManias up to this point. And Vince creates the Survivor Series, and he basically tells the cable companies, hey, if you air Starrcade at the same time as Survivor Series, we're not going to let you be able to broadcast WrestleMania 4 in the March of the following year. So he basically, and a lot of cable companies, followed suit, and they didn't air Starrcade. So this hurt Starrcade, and it of course helped Vince then, and of course later on, 10 or so, 15 years later, when he put his competition out of business. But this classic Vince just going to each of the small territories and just stomping them out of the ground.
And that was the Starrcade. That all was headed up by Jim Crockett, right?
Yep.
He would later then work for WWF, WWE, right?
No, not Jim Crockett. No, he. You might be thinking of.
Who am I thinking? Jim Cornette. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Crockett was the promoter.
That's right.
Now that the NWA ended up turning into WCW, early WCW. But I always get Crockett Cornette confused because it's like last letter and then of course the same amount of letters, Crockett. Right. But no, thinking of Cornette.
All right. So
the first ever Survivor Series.
Yep. All right. So moving on to your number 3.
Righty, and I promise, guys, I didn't watch wrestling. I've watched wrestling in more years than 1998, but my third pick is also 1998, and this is WrestleMania 14. And to me, this is sort of when the Attitude Era officially gets underway, because Steve Austin wins the championship. Now it's kind of timely because Ken, I know me and you, we were both chatting last Friday night when the Tyson Hall.
Yeah.
We may have to do a podcast on that debacle.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, this is related to WrestleMania 14 because Mike Tyson was brought in as the special guest enforcer of the match. Now, at the time, Tyson he's already, taken the boxing world by storm, but he's also gone through his legal troubles. I think this is also after he had bit Holyfield's ear. So Tyson is just, sort of on top of the boxing world, maybe for not all the right reasons, but it's no bigger star outside of wrestling that Vince could have got, other than the baddest man on the planet. And of course, storyline, he aligns himself with DX, Shawn Michaels, Triple H.
Yeah. And
there's a classic scene before the pay-per-view where, they're basically facing off, and Tyson and Austin sort of get into, face to face. And but he's the special guest enforcer. During the match, he turns on Michaels and does a fast count, counts Austin the champ, 1, 2, 3. Now this was also very important for a couple of reasons, not just Tyson's involvement, and of course not just Austin's first championship won, but this actually would end up being Shawn Michaels' last match for about 4.5 years.
Yeah.
He was dealing with some very serious back injury that was pretty much going to put him on the shelf. So, this is it for Michaels up until about 2002 when he makes a return. But it also had a great match, the Shamrock versus The Rock for the Intercontinental title. The Rock wins. And, of course, this is sort of the start of Rock sort of coming out of the Nation of Domination,
right,
into sort of his own champ, And then there was also a dumpster match, which I thought was interesting. The New Age Outlaws versus Cactus Jack and Terry Funk, who then was known as Chainsaw Charlie.
Yeah.
But the WrestleMania 14 in 1998, again, just the involvement of Tyson, the notoriety that it brought the WWF at the time, just to me puts it number 3 on my list. What are your memories of WrestleMania 14?
Yeah, the whole Tyson thing. I remember just watching that Monday Night Raw like a couple months before leading up to that, when Vince brought out Tyson and then Stone Cold coming down to the ring. I tell you what, I know that, this stuff is all planned and scripted, but for a while they were watching that. I was just, man, is this for real? Because they played it so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, WrestleMania 14, that I think I watched that one live as well. But yeah, that had some good matches. And then I kind of like, I remember when Austin had his podcast, he said the only thing that he would have changed on that was, like you said, the fast count by Mike Tyson at the end there. But, you know,
it probably wasn't needed. It kind of seemed like Austin, kind of gave him an advantage that he didn't need. But yeah, I mean, seeing Tyson's side with Austin, and really, I don't think Tyson had any more involvement. It was basically just to get eyes on the product for the WrestleMania. Yeah. Of course, at this time, WrestleMania is firmly established as the top pay-per-view. Yeah. But again, if you're talking about, at the time, really early '98, WCW is winning the ratings.
Right.
And, the Vince, this would basically start the whole Vince Austin feud for the next year or two to come.
Yeah. I remember a couple months back, I was watching the documentary. I believe it was on Vice. It was called Who Killed WCW? Yep. And I remember Eric Bischoff talked about that. He was like, when they, he found out that they were bringing Tyson in, he was like, oh, okay, they're stepping up their game a little bit here.
Yeah, Bischoff knew that was a huge get.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to my number 2 from the 80s. We're going to go with another Survivor Series just a year later, Survivor Series 88. Like the last one, this one only had 4 matches. November 24th, 1988, in the same city, Richfield, Ohio, same Coliseum, Richfield Coliseum. Pretty much this was kind of just almost a rinse and repeat of the one before, where you had a tag team Survivor Series match. You had another Andre the Giant, Dino Bravo, Rick Rude, Harley Race, and Mr. Perfect going up against Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jake the Snake. I don't know who this guy is. Scott Casey. And then Ken Patera and Tito Santana. That guy, that name escapes me. I don't know who that is at all. This pay-per-view, it's a 3 out of the 4 matches went 30 minutes or longer. So another, long drawn out matches. In these Survivor Series, there's really no titles or anything at stake, but I kind of always just liked the 5-on-5. Yeah. And back then you had a lot of stars. So this one, I put it at number 2 just because, I like the Survivor Series, format. So
it's definitely a good way to have a lot of storylines going together. Very similar to, I'll be talking soon about the Royal Rumble, right? When you got many wrestlers in the ring, right? There can be multiple things happening at the same time, but and yes, it's all happening at the same time, but then you have wrestlers that are sort of furthering their storylines, or in some cases beginning a storyline.
Yeah.
I remember during the era that you're talking about, the 80s, I believe one of the Survivor Series, or it might have been the Royal Rumble, where Hogan accidentally bumped, or it might have, I have to look this up, but accidentally ran against the ropes and knocked Macho Man off the apron.
Yeah.
Macho thought there was something behind it, and
right.
It was that little bit of like the doubt that crept in the Macho that, of course, kind of further propelled with the whole Elizabeth angle and stuff like that. But I think that was at one of these pay-per-views here in around 88.
And I know I want to say one of the Royal Rumbles also from in the 80s where they set up the Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, where they were, I want to say, the last 2. And then, Hogan's back, he has his back turned, Warrior has his back turned, and they, bump into each other and then have the, face off. And that's what kind of started that feud. But all right, that's my number 2. What do you got?
Timely to talk about the Survivor Series since we're, around that time of year. So good pick. So my number 2, I think I just mentioned it a few seconds ago, but it's going to be, we're out of 1998.
Okay.
We're out of 88. We're going back to, we're going back in time to 1992, and this is the Royal Rumble. And of course, I love the Royal Rumble concept. I'm not the greatest fan these days. I've kind of seemed like I've gotten older and just fallen out of love with it. But man, early Royal Rumbles, to me, man, they're just so fun, because it's like with Survivor Series, you got an opportunity to see just about almost every wrestler on the roster, you know?
Yeah.
Some might just be like Scott Casey, who's like, where's this guy? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
But like, for the most part, Royal Rumble, you got 30 guys in the ring. Most of the time, you're going to have 5 to 8 or 9 people in the same ring at the same time. I mean,
right.
I don't think I've ever seen all 30 in the same ring. But 92 was special, and I'll tell you why. Because this was the first time there was actually something on the line. For the first few Royal Rumbles, which I believe might have been started in 88 or so.
I believe it was 88, yeah.
I think Hacksaw Jim Duggan was the first ever winner.
Yep.
But in 92, there was a vacated title because the Hogan and The Undertaker were in a feud, battling for the championship.
Right.
And that they had 2 matches earlier, and neither one of them had been able to. There hadn't been a clear winner in either one. So Jack Tunney, you remember Jack Tunney?
Oh yeah. Yep.
He was the sort of
the president,
fictional president, even
yeah.
though Vince is pulling those strings. But Jack Tunney was the on-air president, and anytime Jack Tunney came to the ring, stuff was going down.
Yeah.
He decided that, the Royal Rumble, the title was going to be vacated, and there was going to be a winner, the winner of the Royal Rumble. Now, these days, the winner of the Royal Rumble gets the title shot at WrestleMania. But in 92, the winner actually became champ. And very important that about 6 months prior to this, in 1992, a man known as the Nature Boy, Rick Flair, has a disagreement with WCW. They wanted to change his character, and I've heard rumors of they wanted him to cut his hair and this, that, and the other. He just didn't agree with the creative that they were going with him. And so he left the company. He actually takes the belt with him, the NWA WCW championship belt with him to WWF. And he's got a series of, this is about the summer of 91. And there's a series of vignettes and promos that he's cutting. He's talking about, the real world champion has arrived. Now, at the time, if you're a wrestling fan, and some people may have, especially, down in the South, Ric Flair was the man, right?
Oh, yeah.
In Vince's world up north, some of those fans may have not really heard much about Ric Flair, but when this happened, you got to think as a wrestling fan, my goodness, we're getting ready to see Hulk Hogan, the biggest star produced by the WWF, and then of course Ric Flair, the biggest wrestling star in the South. They're going to face off. So the promos that happened up to Royal Rumble, I mean, was really Flair just trying to lay the foundation that he was the real champ. He was the real champ. At the time, like I said, Hogan and The Undertaker were sort of in a feud. This was Undertaker's very start of his early years. So, and then there was also a newcomer to the WWF, Sid Justice. We spoke about him months ago with his recent passing. So in the Royal Rumble, Flair actually comes in at third. So he's got to outlast all 30 men coming in. And he does it. I mean, he basically lasts up till the 30th participant. Right. And he eliminates Sid Justice, who had just eliminated Hulk Hogan, actually assisted Flair in eliminating Justice, and Flair wins the title. A couple things about this pay-per-view. One, like I said, Hogan becomes the champ. He cuts a promo after the match. If you've ever seen Ric Flair promos, this one is probably front and center. And starts off with something about like, with a tear in my eye, I can tell
Yeah.
you this is the greatest moment in my life. And I've listened to podcasts, and he basically said that he was talking to WCW, basically sort of talking to them directly about all the titles he had won during the NWA days and the WCW days, that he was at the pinnacle of his career because he had become the champ of the WWF. He cut a great promo there, and you've got Mr. Perfect in the background, the side of Flair. Bobby Heenan's there, Mean Gene Okerlund's interviewing him. It's just a great promo. If you haven't seen it, just Google Ric Flair Royal Rumble 22 promo. One thing that was interesting about this pay-per-view too was that in the 80s, like your decade, it's Hogan. Hogan is the man. Hogan's the top of the list, the top of the food chain. But by 92, the fans had starting to get a little tired of Hogan. In fact, when at the end, when Hogan eliminated Sid, it's Hogan and Sid. It's not Hogan and Flair that are having a standoff. You'd think, okay, this is going to set up perfectly. Flair's the champ, and now WrestleMania, we get the payoff, Hogan and Flair.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is that Flair starts a feud with Savage.
Right.
He faces him at WrestleMania, and then Hogan and Sid face off. So we don't get the Hogan Flair like I think everybody thought. But at this time, you could hear the crowd is actually starting to boo Hogan. And in 92, I think Hogan's all-American persona, the say your prayers, eat your vitamins, sort of is getting a little tired, a little stale.
Yeah.
I think the WWE probably pivoted because at the time they wanted Hogan to be face and they wanted Flair to be the dirtiest player in the game, heel.
Right.
But the crowd was going to go that way. So maybe that's why they never fought. Of course, they would end up having their first real match in WCW.
Yeah.
A few years later when Hogan left the WWF. But I just thought it was interesting that the WWF, had that at the time. It's got Flair, it's got Hogan, Savage, Piper, Ultimate Warrior. You've got so much talent. I mean, there may have not been a time in the WWF than 1992 when they got Flair, and also Sid was a big get because he came from the WCW NWA side. But that there might have not been a better range of talent than what the WWF had in 92. So it was just a great time for them. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about this was, do you remember the classic promo with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, where they turned, Michael turned?
Yeah, on the barber shop. Yeah, with Beefcake. Oh, yeah. I remember that was on one of the Saturday morning shows, either Wrestling WWF Superstars or Wrestling Challenge, one of those two shows. Yeah, I definitely remember watching that. Yeah.
So the Royal Rumble 92, a week before that pay-per-view, that promo, that vignette aired on TV, like you said, Wrestling Challenge or WWF Superstars. But a week ago that happened, and so Shawn Michaels is in the Royal Rumble, and this is sort of the unofficial beginning of his Heartbreak Kid era.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
He's looked at as the bad guy for turning on Jannetty.
Yeah.
Of course, in retrospect, what a move,
Oh yeah, I mean, I always remember. I see some things on some Facebook page, wrestling Facebook pages I follow, and they somebody did a drawing. It said it showed what would have happened if the roles would have been reversed. Would Jannetty have gone on to be the bigger star or not? Who knows?
Some people thought Jannetty was actually the better technical wrestler.
Yeah.
And if you are a fan of the Dark Side of the Ring, there's a Marty Jannetty episode.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
That and Marty Jannetty's sort of very crazy life. But that was a prominent storyline that just happened a week prior to the Royal Rumble 92. But Royal Rumble 92 is all about Flair. Flair. Yeah. I know that Flair ended up not staying in the WWF very long.
No.
And he got money to come back to WCW, but But at this time, the WWF had all the top stars. I mean, they were rolling real high.
I'll just say about that too is I remember, being up here, I really, I knew who Ric Flair was, but I didn't really watch WCW. The only thing I ever really watched from being up north here was WWF. So
yeah, if you had to be really into the wrestling magazines and stuff to really know what's going on in the other parts of the country.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a really good pick.
And so we're down to our number one picks for each of us.
All right.
I think I know what you're going to pick.
Okay. I was just going to say, you probably guess which one I'm going for. So my number one, this is the one I always really remember that stands out in my memory, is WrestleMania 3, March 29th, 1987, Pontiac, Michigan, the Pontiac Silverdome. Of course, this is the one where they say they, at the time, broke the record for attendance. They claim 93,173, but everything I've researched say it was more like 78,000, which is still a huge crowd. But I think they, overinflated the attendance there. And of course, this is, the famous Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. People, for me at the time, I thought that this was the first time that they had ever fought each other. But then, come to find out, I want to say back in the late 70s, they were fighting each other in AWA, and, Hogan had already body slammed him prior to this.
And not just Hogan, you find out, if you go deep into wrestling, you find out that other people had slammed Andre as well. But this is the one that certainly gets all the attention, right?
And one of the other matches, which I think that was actually better than the Hogan Andre, was the Intercontinental Championship between Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, that was a great match.
Classic, yep.
Although, false finishes and just a little background for, my memory for WrestleMania 3 is, I remember my dad bought the pay-per-view. At the time, we lived in a decent sized house, but, not the biggest house, but we had, maybe 20, 25 people in our living room. This was almost like a Super Bowl event. Yeah. And, everybody was, you could just feel the excitement in the air, in the house and everything. And just, this one always sticks out to me as a kid, this WrestleMania. And it's probably either number one or two for a lot of people for, pay-per-views in the 80s.
I think a lot of people feel like this is like in my head, I always thought like, oh, WrestleMania 1, Hogan picks up Andre, but no, that's number 3.
Right.
but and 1 and 2, 1 started it. You mentioned it. 2 was that one that they had it in different arenas. Remember?
They had it in different cities, and they tried to do it like a simulcast almost.
Yeah.
That one wasn't very good.
Yeah. But the 3, I think the thing about 3 is that it was truly the passing of the torch. Andre was having a lot of problems at the time, just moving around, and what he suffered from, his gigantic frame is just he couldn't move, and of course he would go on a few more years after this, but in a very much limited capacity. I think at the time this might have been, was Princess Bride already out, or coming out later? I know he went to go do film.
Yeah, I don't know. That might have been after this. I'm not positive on that.
But yeah, this one is iconic for all the right reasons, I think.
Just one other match that always kind of stands out to me was the Honky Tonk Man versus Jake the Snake Roberts, who had Alice Cooper in his corner. Mm-hmm. I always remember that with with the snake, and
WrestleMania was always about the celebrity appearance.
The celebrities, yeah. But yeah, that'll round out my picks for the 80s. So we're down to you, number 1 of the 90s.
Yep, and so I'm not gonna go back to 98. So don't worry there. My pick is actually has a very personal memory for me, and it's WrestleMania 10, 1994. The reason I picked this is because this is the one pay-per-view that I had recorded on a VHS. I don't even think my family had cable.
Okay.
So, USA Network and wrestling, unless I was watching it on Saturday night's main event, I don't think I was watching wrestling. But I remember my uncle, he'd always get the pay-per-views, and I wasn't very close to my uncle, but somehow he must have made me a copy of WrestleMania 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I popped it in. Oh man, I wore that tape out. Tell you from start to finish how the match started and who showed up in the match and how the matches ended. But it's my favorite WrestleMania for a couple of reasons. First, the quality of matches on WrestleMania 10 was just outstanding. So rewind a couple months back, Royal Rumble 1994 was actually a Royal Rumble that ended where Bret Hart and Lex Luger touched the floor at the same time.
Oh.
So they couldn't determine who would get a title shot. At the time, you remember Yokozuna?
Oh, yeah.
Mammoth of a man, just a great champion for WWF, and didn't have a real long run, but early 90s, man, he was just, kind of like Andre, like just in a different way, but like
unstoppable.
Unstoppable. How was anybody going to beat this man? Jack Tunney, there's that name again.
Yeah.
Besides that, how he's gonna, there's a coin flip. I think one of the Raws, and again, Raw was probably within its first year of airing. So on a Monday Night Raw, he does a coin flip, and he says if whoever wins gets the first crack at Yokozuna, and then whoever loses has to face somebody else. So Lex Luger wins the toss, and he gets to face Yokozuna first. Bret Hart in the opening match, he has to face Owen. And I love this storyline because at the time they started doing that slow burn storyline where Owen and Bret, there was jealousy creeping in, Savage and Hogan a few years back. Yeah. So Owen was getting a little jealous of Bret, and he was talking about how he was the better wrestler, but Bret was getting all the attention and things like that. So they face off at WrestleMania 10 in a great match. Owen actually pins Bret. He goes back and cuts a promo and talks about how he knew he was the better Hart and how he's the best, and just really laying it in to Bret. Later on in the match, Lex loses to Yokozuna by DQ. Mr. Perfect is the special guest referee. So Lex can't capitalize on his title shot.
Yeah.
As promised, Bret would face the winner of Yoko and Lex. So he ends up facing Yokozuna at the very end.
Yeah.
It's a great match. It ends with Yokozuna. He was doing his patented bonsai drop, and I guess he just misjudged, in quote.
Right.
Falls off the second turn, the second rope, and Bret, after probably about a 20-25 minute grueling match, pins him for the 1-2-3, and all the baby faces come out at the end to celebrate with Bret capturing the title, taking it off of Yoko's waist. And the very end of WrestleMania is great because they look down the aisle, and Owen Hart is looking at Bret, just like he had won the match, of course, but again, Bret Hart gets the notoriety because he just won the title, and it really set up their feud to come in the months and years ahead. But with all that said, that's actually not my favorite thing about WrestleMania 10. My favorite thing,
I think I know where you're going.
So Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. What I feel like is the first ladder match. It probably isn't. Technically, there probably was some ladder match somewhere else, but they had the first ever ladder match, and man, it was an epic battle. It was for the Intercontinental title. The title's hanging in the air. One thing I love about the match was the ladder. They had one ladder. I had heard on podcasts that they didn't have anything to back up a backup ladder. So if that ladder got damaged, broken, I don't know how they were going to fix it. During the match. Sean comes out with Diesel by his side, and he the ladder is in the aisle. He goes around it. Razor Ramon, who is just one of the coolest characters that have ever, just the whole gimmick. He actually walks under the ladder. It's kind of like to defy the odds of Lady Luck. They put on a great show. They use the ladder as a weapon. They throw each other into the ladder. They jump off the ladder. I mean, just something that me as a 9-year-old had never seen before, much less hadn't seen much wrestling. But then people jumping off this ladder and doing things and just hitting with it just looks so cool. So anyway, it ends up with Sean falls off the ladder and gets tangled up into the ropes, and Razor climbs and becomes the Intercontinental title and wins the first ever ladder match. But it really set the stage for the ladder matches that would follow in the years to come. But that's my favorite WrestleMania. Again, I had it on VHS. It was recorded on a VHS tape, and I just watched it so much during my childhood that it just holds a special place for me. What do you think about that paper?
Yeah, I can definitely tell you where I was at the time, and I remember watching it. I was in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. I was in the Navy. I had bought the pay-per-view, and then just me and a few buddies were in my barracks room watching it. I mean, I remember, that whole storyline with Brett and Owen was, so good. And and then the ladder match, and that was, because you'd never seen it before, and just all the things that they were doing was just unbelievable.
It's kind of like when you said earlier that WrestleMania 3, where Savage Steamboat was like the match of the night, where Sean Razor was the match of the night, and it wasn't even the final match.
No. And like, just to piggyback off what you said, you wore a VHS out of that. We recorded WrestleMania 3, and I was the same way with that. I was always popping that in and watching that all the time. Yeah.
I can even see the color. I even remember the color of the label on the VHS tape. Random, but like, just stick with you. I thank my uncle, because I wish I'd had asked for more him. I don't know if he bought these things or he had like a black box or something, but he always seemed to have paper. This is the only one I remember him just like, hey, here you go. I was too young to really like go in the video store and know to ask for the Coliseum videos. But if you remember too, back in the day, the Coliseum videos, it would take months for them to come out. And by the time they came out, I mean, that pay-per-view was already 6 months old. Or I
was going to say, at least half a year old. Yeah.
Well,
but man, this was a really fun topic.
Yeah, I think we went real long on time, but with a lot to say about each. 10 pay-per-views is a lot.
Yeah,
I'm glad we split them up in the decades, because a lot of what I would have picked, WrestleMania 3, the SummerSlam '89 with Zeus and Hogan. Those would have been my picks too. But in the '90s, there was a lot more to choose from, and again, probably after about '95 or '96, you started having a pay-per-view every month. So, but the big four, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and of course WrestleMania. Those are always have been the top of the mountain for fans.
Gentlemen, I must say the odds look to be stacked against you in the grand finale match of survival. Hulkster, it is your team of 3 against their 5.
Well, you know something, little dude? We're not too worried about the odds being stacked against us, The way I count this thing, brother, is those 5 over there are against the Warrior, my man Tito Santana, the Stark Raven Hulkster, and millions of those little Hulkamaniacs out there, brother.
Because that's the bottom line. Because Stone Cold said so.
Okay, we're going to take a quick ad break. We'll be right back.
Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whichever holiday you celebrate, there is one thing we can all agree on. These winter holidays mark that magical and wonderful time of the year where everyone comes together to celebrate the birth of the ugly Christmas sweater. Ugly Christmas sweaters are one of our favorite parts of the holiday season, and Fun.com has a wide variety of them, ranging from the hilarious to the hilariously offensive, and we're sure you're going to find something that you can't wait to wear. Whether your plans include a festive family gathering or a rowdy celebration with lots of eggnog and friends, Fun.com has ugly Christmas sweaters for every occasion, featuring loud prints, striking images and phrases, and even flashing lights. Every Christmas sweater they offer definitely makes a statement and an impression. Head on over to Fun.com and get yours now before all the best ones are gone. And if you click the link in the show notes or on any of the banners at geekstermedia.com, you'll save 15%, yes, 15% off your entire order with our exclusive coupon code that'll be automatically applied at checkout. Make Fun.com your first stop for all of your ugly Christmas sweater shopping needs this year. Okay, we're back. Now let's move on to the next segment of the show, Ken's Toy Retrospective.
All right, Chad. Well, that was a really fun main topic, talking 80s and 90s WWF pay-per-views. So now we're going to move on to my toy segment of the show. For this episode, I picked handheld Tiger electronic games. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Are those like the ones with the single colored screen, or did they have colored screens?
Yeah, no, they were pretty much just like a digital gray and black background, and yeah, almost kind of looked like a digital watch almost.
Tiger Electronics, man, they almost own that market, didn't they?
Yeah, so just a little bit of history. Tiger Electronics, founded in 1978 by, I'm assuming, the three people that I see here all have the same last name. So you have Randy, Gerald, and Arnold Rissman of Vernon Hills, Illinois. So back in the day, the early days of the company, they mostly made electronic items like phonographs. But then as the company grew, it started branching out, kind of like with electronic games and toys. Besides the handheld games, which they were most popular for, they also made products like the 2XL robot, which I don't know what that was. Then we have something called Brain Warp. And then, of course, here you have Furby, which I think everybody knows what Furby is.
Yeah, and I actually have Brain Warp.
Oh, really?
And it's a cool game. Think of like Simon, but
okay.
Like Simon's a flat circular game that you basically memorize the colors. With Brain Warp, and this is cool. I didn't know Tiger made it, but you basically have these little 6-sided ball, and you push a button, and basically you either say colors or numbers, and you just flip it. And I guess the gravity knows which side you flip it to, and of course it gets faster and faster. So you're like, it was a fun game back in the day. I actually still, like I said, it's one of my boxes here. So
it's cool. Okay. And then they had other products, something called Gigapets, Laser Tag, which Laser Tag was popular back in the 80s, something called Skip It. And then what I didn't know was they had a product called the Talk Boy. This says here it was made popular in the movie Home Alone.
Yeah, Kevin, man, he used that to call the hotel
to
reservation. That was definitely the movie. I think it was probably that Christmas when that came out. And it was very simple. You could basically slow your voice down or speed your voice up. You could record back. Very simple concept, but yeah, definitely made popular by Macaulay Culkin.
I think he was using that in Home Alone 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was. It was
okay.
He made the hotel reservation with it and sounded like his father.
Yeah, okay. And then I know he used it in the scene where he had his Uncle Frank's voice on there, and the guy comes up to the room to talk to an adult, and he's got the little blow up bozo doll in the shower. That was pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah, man, he was very smart. He also used the VCR to play the clips of the movie. When he's like, I'm gonna give you to the count of 10 to get your no good my property, and he's using the VCR remote to rewind, fast forward. Pretty technological genius, man.
Yeah.
I remember Skip It too. Skip It that's a very 90s toy. And it was that thing where there's a piece of plastic, you put it around your ankle, and you basically did like a jump over it, but it had a counter.
Okay.
And now I never did one, but it took some a decent amount of athleticism to do it. But Skip It was one of those counting things.
Yeah. Now I remember seeing those around. So and then Tiger Electronics, they were working in partnership with Hasbro, and then eventually in 1998, Hasbro acquired Tiger Electronics, and they still have a division of Tiger to this day. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Wonder how many licenses Tiger had for their digital games, because I can remember Double Dragon.
Yeah.
Konami also did them. I had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one, but the ones were the Tiger ones. They had it was the same shape, the same 2 or 3 buttons on each side. And then of course the sticker was just different. So you had RoboCop, or like I said, I remember Double Dragon. I remember every sport you could think of,
Yeah. So I'm just looking at a list here of pretty much all the licenses and games that they had. So I'll just go through down the list here, a couple here. They had an A-Team game, basketball. I'm seeing a lot of baseball.
Yep.
Back to the Future. So pretty much anything that was popular, Batman, a lot of Batman games here.
Yeah.
There was even, I saw going down the list here, probably one that you would like here, a Dale Earnhardt Winner's Circle. So they had NASCAR stuff. They even, looking here, they even had an MC Hammer game.
What the point of that one was?
I don't know. You probably just had to do I would assume just dance moves or something like that. A lot of Mickey Mouse, Disney stuff. So yeah, like you said, Double Dragon, Street Fighter. Yeah. A lot of popular licenses back in the day.
Yeah. I wonder how sales did before it came out, because, it is very similar. But obviously the Game Boy has a lot more playable time with you can change the cartridges, whereas you buy one of these Tiger games, that's what you got.
Yeah.
For somebody who may not had been a chance to get a Game Boy, I mean, these were obviously much more affordable.
Yeah, way more affordable. Yeah, that's what I was reading an article earlier today, and yeah, they said a lot more affordable than the Game Boy. So here we go. So just recently, back in 2020, they started coming out with some games again, and I picked up one a couple years ago, X-Men.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty basic. You got your directional pad and a move and a jump button.
Yep.
So let me fire it up to see if we can get those classic sounds. Hopefully it still works. Oh yeah, there we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's a 2020, you said?
Around 2020, I think 2021 was when I bought it from GameStop. I know they had a couple other ones that I recently saw was a Spider-Man, a Transformers, and a Jurassic Park. So probably just, reissues of the old games just made, now.
Right.
Yeah.
I would think, though, I'm looking here at Tiger's wiki, and they also made the Furby. Do you remember the craze of the Furby back in the mid-90s?
Oh, yeah, the Furbies, man. Yeah, those things were super hot back then.
Gigapets reminds me of the Tamagotchi, which I think Tamagotchi was not Tiger, but Gigapets was was Tiger's version.
Was their version.
Yeah, but that was I remember a Christmas or two where, man, those things were hot items, taking care of your virtual pets.
Right. So yeah, I just thought I was kind of thinking back of something that, I played as a kid, and something really simple, but I thought, some people loved them and some people didn't like them just because of the simplicity of them, but I always liked playing with them.
Yeah, when I got one, it was usually I would get one. I would never ask for one, but like you had that aunt or uncle who probably didn't know what to get you, so they one random. And I think I remember having a baseball one or a generic football one or something, and they were cool, but yeah, their playability was very short.
Right.
Maybe even after the first time you ran out of battery.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I picked for the retrospective this week. Something easy to do, talk about, and something from both of our childhood. So yeah, Tiger Electronics.
Yep. What else you got?
All right. So for the something new from Hot Toys, they just recently reacquired their Terminator license. So, and I just came across this earlier in the week. They announced their from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the T1000 2.0, which is, of course, the liquid metal Terminator from Terminator 2, which is, I always thought was really cool. And the effects in the movie for being, back in 1991 were really great, I thought.
Yeah.
So this figure comes in at 12 inches tall. He's got 30 points of articulation. And then, of course, we've said before with these figures, lots of accessories. So just to name a few for this one, he comes with a regular head sculpt with movable eyes, which I'd like to see that. He's got a battle damage head sculpt, multiple interchangeable hands, liquid metal effect pieces, a removable motorcycle helmet, removable glasses, motorcycle jacket, and then he comes with a police belt and a display stand with light up LED feature. So with these, we've mentioned in our episodes in the past, these figures come with just tons of accessories and, light up and cool display stands.
Yeah, the actor who played him, Robert Patrick, I think is his name, classic 80s, 90s character actor. They really got the look of the figure, man.
I was just going to say the likeness for this figure is like, pretty close to the actual person.
Yeah, that's cool. I see it's at a pretty hefty price tag.
Ooh, yeah, $330. But this looks like he's not being released till either late 2025 or early 2026. So I guess if you get your pre-order in now, you'll just be waiting quite a while. But
yeah,
like we say with all these, if you have the money and, you want it for your collection,
especially if you're a fan of the Terminator, I mean, this is definitely a very awesome figure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we'll move on to a recent purchase, and I bought this, I want to say April or May of this year from Mattel Creations, their retro WrestleMania ring. Here we go. Show it off to you there.
Now the figures and the ring come together, huh?
The ring is sold separately.
Okay.
And then the four figures that were a bundle with this came, I also bought those, which are still in the box. So you have a Hulk Hogan, a Muhammad Ali, who was the referee for the main event at WrestleMania 1, which we just covered in our pay-per-views. And then you have Big John Studd and Wendy Richter.
I think my favorite figure out of these four is the Wendy Richter, man. You recently covered the Vince McMahon documentary, and it was actually, I kind of learned from there that how huge of an impact Wendy Richter, I mean, I don't think she gets enough credit for doing what she did. When you think of the divas, and of course you think of more of the like late 90s, early 2000s, but Wendy Richter and what she did for that, especially that first WrestleMania, with Cyndi Lauper and stuff like that. I mean, she doesn't get the credit she deserved. And interesting what they said about her in the documentary. But That's such the style of her ring attire, and I mean, just a really cool figure. I think that's my favorite of the 4.
Yeah, in these, like I think we had mentioned before, the old WWF Hasbro line, they're trying to make these, in that, coming back with that kind of style figure, which I always thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
They each have a little action feature with them, so I decided to pick. It came together as a bundle, so I decided to pick that up. And like I said, I got that a few months ago, and hopefully pretty soon here I might do a unboxing and review of it for my YouTube channel.
Yeah, that'll be cool. They should WWE should do more of these, like, because those 4 people were huge in WrestleMania 1, but we just covered 10 pay-per-views, and imagine if WWE released one of these a year. You could release the ring, the look of the ring. Like, I know the WrestleMania logo changed over time. You could release the different figures of that. I mean, you imagine the Royal Rumble ring with, like, 1992. You could put Flair, you could put Hogan, you could put the Taker. Those 3 or 4 final combatants of the Royal Rumble 92. That'd be a good one.
Yeah. So speaking, they do have other figures like this in this line. I have a 4-pack that has Lex Luger, Tugboat, Doink the Clown, and Greg the Hammer Valentine. And then I also have another 4-pack that has The Undertaker, Paul Bearer, Vader, and Jerry the King Lawler. And then they also came out with an NWO 4-pack, which of course has Hollywood Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and he was X-Pac in DX, but 6 in the NWO. Yeah. And then I want to get the other set to go along with this that has Mr. T, Mean Gene, Rowdy Piper, and Cowboy Bob Orton. So you could actually recreate the main event of WrestleMania 1 with these figures.
And those are also all Hasbro-like style figures.
Yep, they're just made through Mattel now, so pretty much the same, same thing as in the past, but just through Mattel.
Yeah, we definitely, me and you need to have an episode on these. I had a few of them growing up, and figures are definitely one of those things. I wish I had the unlimited income to just buy some of these and the variants and things like that. They're just some cool stuff.
All right, and then I'll get to my last part of the segment, my eBay wish list. Something simple, nothing really retro, but since we were talking about planes, trains, and automobiles earlier in the show, I just came across a Funko 2-pack of Neil Page and Del Griffith. Yep. So pretty basic, you got Neil there with his briefcase, and I think Del has is that his trunk that he carries around with him, or is that something else in his hand?
I think it's a suitcase or a trunk. Yeah, it's not his traditional trunk. It was one he carries, like, not a chest.
Yeah.
He's got his hat on, his classic sort of winter hat there.
Yep. Yeah. These look pretty good. The Funko's come a long way with detail and designs of, the figures that they put out now from when they first started. So yeah, these look really cool.
They did a great job. The only thing I would request of Funko would throw in a charred car that you could put and display right beside these two.
They do have a line called Funko Rides, where they do vehicles with because you can get a Batman with a Batmobile, and I know what else do they have? They have a Mr. T A-Team with the van. So yeah, that would be pretty sweet if they made something like that for these guys.
Yeah, that sounds like a moneymaker there. And you could go on, and I mean, you could, if there's not Back to the Future, you could, the DeLorean, you could have that one. I mean, there's so many that can be done.
Yeah.
I mean, these Funkos, man, I love Funko, and I think we're going to have a show next year about Funko. That's going to be a really fun one, because I know you're a Funko guy too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that'll be a fun episode to do. But yeah, that's going to wrap up the toy line segment for the show. Pretty cool stuff, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, let's switch gears and get into Chad's pop culture moment.
Well, Ken, those were some great toy picks and great reminiscing on some of those fantastic toy lines that we love. Today's pop culture moment, since we are the day after Thanksgiving, I assume that I will have consumed some football on Thanksgiving, Turkey Day, like I normally like to do after a turkey hangover. But I wanted to kind of focus this week's pop culture moment on Thanksgiving football. We all sort of know that traditionally the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions usually headline two games on Thanksgiving. But this year will be the 90th year that Detroit Lions have been featured on Thanksgiving. So back in 1934, they had the first ever televised football game in their history, and they lost to the Bears 19-16. Now technically this started in 1920, but generally it's kind of widely accepted that 1934 was the year that it kicked off, and the Detroit Lions were the one to start the tradition, really. A lot of people know that the Cowboys play as well, but they didn't start playing until 1966. So, right. You know, football is one of those things like on Thanksgiving that they just like, it's iconic, you know, they just go hand in hand. You know, my day usually starts off with the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, followed by, you know, going in and out of the kitchen, snacking a little bit, waiting for dinner. And then throughout the day, watching two games. And then actually, as of I think in 2006, they added a third game at night. So we've got generally three games on Thanksgiving. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of it. You know, the Lions have been traditionally the team that's played the most. They've never played each other. They've always hosted Thanksgiving games, but they never played each other. And the Lions most frequently played the Packers on Thanksgiving, and the Cowboys have most frequently played the Washington Redskins / Commanders. Right. Now, another person who's synonymous with Thanksgiving football is John Madden. You remember classic football coach turned announcer. Oh yeah. Hall of Famer. He was a frequent announcer for these games, and back in 1989, he started a tradition known as the Turkey Leg Award. He would give it to the game's most valuable player. The person who received the first Turkey Leg Award is Reggie White, the great Hall of Fame Green Bay Packer, Philadelphia Eagle. Back in 1989, he won the award, and traditionally it's been given ever since. Another few things to mention. Again, the Lions and Cowboys are the teams that seem to always be featured, but that third game usually is a mixture of two other teams. 1992 was a very memorial game because the Cowboys and the Dolphins were playing in a snowy field back in Texas Stadium, which is probably very ironic for Texas to be getting snow. November. But this was infamous because if you remember, the Cowboys were up on the Dolphins, and the Dolphins went to go hit a field goal, and it was blocked. And one of the Cowboys linemen, Leon Lett, if you've seen this clip, he's going down and inexplicably just touches the football, which makes it a live ball. The Dolphins jump on it, and there's still time left on the clock. They jump on it, take it, and get the field goal, and they end up winning. I think that was they hit the game-winning field goal. So Leon Lett was definitely the not the MVP of that game.
Right.
1997, we're talking the Lions. Barry Sanders, the great Hall of Fame running back. We such an outstanding running back on some very bad Lions teams. He never really achieved much team success with the Lions. But on 1997, he rushed for 2 touchdowns and he had 216 yards in a win against the Colts. This was significant because this was his 10th straight 100-yard rushing game, which at the time was a record. It may still be, actually. 1998 was infamous. Both games, the Cowboys and the Lions games, first, the Steelers ended up, my team, they ended up playing the Lions. And what ended up happening, the game went to overtime. Do you remember this, Ken? The overtime game in 1998?
Man, it's not clicking right now. So I'm not sure if I remember that one.
So this was the game so during overtime, they had the coin flip to see who would get the ball first. And Jerome Bettis of the Pittsburgh Steelers, initially he had said heads, and then he ended up changing his pick to tails. Well, the referee heard heads, but the coin ended up flipping on tails. And there was about 10 or 15 minutes of controversy because he ended up saying heads, tails, and you can clearly hear him say tails, but the Steelers protested and said, no, I said tails. Right. The referee heard heads. Now the Lions ended up getting the ball and scoring 3 points and ended up winning the game. So it was infamous because the Steelers ended up losing on the coin flip. Since that game, they ended up making a rule saying you have to call the coin before the ref even flips it. So there's no more that will ever happen. So that was very infamous. And then the later game, the Cowboys, you had rookie Randy Moss of the Vikings. He had 3 catches, 163 yards, and all 3 of the catches were touchdowns.
Okay, now that I think I do remember that one.
Yeah. He basically he made a name for himself that day with the world watching, America, glued to their TV sets on Thanksgiving, but was an outstanding performance. 3 catches, 3 touchdowns, 163 yards. I mean, they just aired the ball out to him that day. And then the only other memorial game I could remember was about 12 years ago in 2012. This was the night game, so this doesn't involve Detroit or the Cowboys, but the evening game, that game ended up being the Patriots and the Jets. And do you remember Mark Sanchez in the first quarter of the game? He runs behind one of his linemen, and this is the infamous butt fumble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Smack dab into his own players behind and fumbled the ball. The Patriots ended up picking it up and scoring an early touchdown, and it was sort of synonymous for the Jets season that year. The butt fumble was just one of the many things that went wrong for the Jets. But the Patriots ended up winning that game, I believe. But those were the memorable games of Thanksgiving. And again, what's your tradition? Are you big? Your family big watching football, or are you? What's your memories of Thanksgiving football?
Yeah, we definitely always have a game on during the day. Probably all of them, pretty much, I think. And most of the time, not all the time, but I know back when I was a kid, it usually would be the Lions against the Packers, which is, my home state team, and that's my team. So yeah, we always have football on. I believe this year the Packers are playing the night game this year against Miami in Green Bay. So I'll have my eyes on that one.
Yeah. The Packers are a frequent opponent of the Lions, but the Lions have a losing record. But of course, this year could be very different. The Lions are doing very well. They're at the top of the NFC. So, many people have high hopes for the Lions this year. So this could be a different year for Detroit.
Yeah, definitely. They're always, I know they beat us earlier this year, so we got to get one back later on in the season here.
But Thanksgiving and football, man, they just fit like a glove to me. I mean, they just go hand in hand. I don't want to watch any other sport on Thanksgiving other than and I don't want every game, I don't want, obviously Thanksgiving always falls on a Thursday, so you're never going to have it fall on a Sunday where you'd have the whole league playing. But,
right.
2-3 games is perfect. And then you just sit there from about noon till, and especially now, till about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, watching those 3 games. And, snacking on all those great Thanksgiving sides and turkey sandwiches and stuff. There's not many days in sports where like those days are great. I mean, I can think of a few, like the first day of March Madness when you've got, 32 games or maybe 16 games in one day. But Thanksgiving and football, man, they just fit together like a glove.
Hey, going back to this first game, this 1934, are we sure that it wasn't, because in my notes here, I don't think it was televised 1934. I think it was the first nationally broadcast radio football game, I think, is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, well, maybe so. Yeah, it does seem kind of early for TV 34.
Yeah.
But the Lions were definitely in the game. So, yeah, correcting me on that one. But, I wonder when it actually became televised,
Probably, not until around the 50s or so, I would think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's a cool topic. I didn't know that was the very first, Thanksgiving Day game was Detroit and Chicago.
Yeah.
Cool topic.
And now, let's round out the show with our In Memoriam segment.
All right, Chad, so that's going to lead us into our final segment of the show here, our In Memoriam segment. So I know as a couple weeks ago, we had a lot of celebrities, athletes that passed away. This one for this episode is the famous USA Gymnastics coach, Béla Károlyi. He just passed away here on Friday, November 15th. He was born September 13th, 1942. Himself and his wife, Marta, defected to the United States from Romania in 1981. And they went on to coach 5-time Olympic gold medalist Nadia Comaneci, along with other Romanian gymnasts. Do you remember her? I know she was, I think, pretty prominent in the mid to late 70s, I believe.
She doesn't for me.
Okay. Him and his wife were a member of 5 U.S. Olympic team staffs, and he was the personal coach of some of the most successful U.S. gymnasts through the 80s and 90s, including names like Dominique Moceanu, Carrie Strug, probably the most popular, Mary Lou Retton.
Yep.
I remember, I want to say that was the 1984 Olympics where she won a lot of gold medals and was on Wheaties boxes.
Kind of became like America's sweetheart, that summer.
Yeah, definitely. Then later in his career, he served as the U.S. women's national team coordinator from November of 1999 through January of 2001. And then he continued to be involved in the sport after his wife assumed some duties as the national team coordinator from 2001 to 2016. And then eventually he was inducted into the International Gymnastics Hall of Fame in 97. And then he was inducted along with his wife into the USA Gymnastics Hall of Fame in 2000 as a coaching duo. A pretty long career there in, U.S. gymnastics Olympics, and I'm sure world championships and other things like that.
Yeah, it was one, he was in one of those kind of sports where you didn't really know about him except for every 4 years during the Olympics. It's not like gymnastics is a televised sport any other time normally. But I just remember many Olympics seeing him standing beside these young women, coaching them to gold medals. I mean, some of his, I know he had a couple of critics for his coaching style. I think he was very, very hard, very tough.
Strict. Yeah.
But, his success speaks for himself with some of the athletes that he got gold medals with, Says he coached 9 champions, 15 world champions, 16 European medalists. So just a load of accomplishments for him and his gymnasts.
Yeah. So here we say, Béla Károlyi, rest in peace. A long, storied career in USA Gymnastics.
Yep. Well, Ken, this was a very stuffed, pardon the pun, episode of the Retro Resurgence. We packed a lot in, and I feel like this was going to be one of our longer episodes. But us covering those 10 pay-per-views, man, we just had so much to say, and I hate to have trimmed it any more than 5. We all had memories of each of those pay-per-views, but this was a fun one, man.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, when it comes to wrestling and things like that, I don't think you can like you said, you can't trim them or cut them short. You just gotta go with the flow and give your memories and some of the facts of the pay-per-views and just have fun and talk about it.
Yep, absolutely. And it's always a pleasure, man, to record with you every 2 weeks. We did announce last episode that we are starting a series of podcasts that we're going to call the Nostalgia Oasis. And I believe, Ken, you've got one sort of in the works. I'm working to get one out here, hopefully early December. There are going to be some solo shows. So when you look at your podcast feed, you'll see a different type of episode, but it'll be either Ken or myself just riffing off of a topic that we just kind of have a desire to do. And we'll hopefully start to see those episodes here soon.
Yeah, my plan is to try to record one in between this episode and our first December episode. So I'm hoping to get one done in that time frame.
Those will be hitting podcast feeds soon. Of course, we've got our new website, theretroresurgence.com. Ken's putting up some toy pics. He'll probably maybe feature some of the stuff that in visual form, maybe that he talked about in this episode.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Yeah.
And we're going to, continue to take bits and pieces of our show and sort of put them on the website there for, all to read. And, I realize sometimes people don't have enough time to get away and listen, but, they might be able to read a 5 or 10 minute article there on the website. So we encourage people to go visit that. We also encourage them to look at our socials. We try to post something at least once a week, based off of the topic that we are discussing for that week. And, the holidays are coming up. So hopefully we'll have a lot of good holiday themed posts and articles here the next month or so.
Yeah. And we just like to say, wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully you listen to this episode over the long weekend, and we hope you enjoy it.
Well, Ken, it's been fun, man. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving with your family, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you too, Chad. Happy Thanksgiving. See you in a couple weeks.
$6 in my right nut says we're not landing in Chicago.
Thank you for listening to the Retro Resurgence podcast. You can find us on most major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also find us on social media. You can follow us on Instagram at The Retro Resurgence. You can also find us on X at Retro Resurgence, or you can email us at theretroresurgence@gmail.com. And lastly, you can find us online at our home base, www.theretronetwork.com, where you'll find lots of great people and content there. Please engage with us on social media or leave us feedback at our email. Leave a rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Join us again in 2 weeks here on the Retro Resurgence podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the Retro Resurgence podcast. We're so grateful you joined us today and took a trip down memory lane with us, and we can't wait to bring you more retro goodness in our next episode. Until then, keep embracing the past, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.
This has been a presentation of Geekster Media.